So then the question is, okay, nice stories, how do we do it? What kind of data do we have? How does this apply to the themes that I'm working on my business, where I have day-to-day struggles and challenges? And the beautiful thing is that with this global data, you can craft those strategies very efficiently. So what have we done? We have built around this database a platform that is trained on the thresholds and the statistical significant differences. And so it took a while to train this tool based on that. So it's not an LLM model going wild, because you can, of course, always prompt with Gemini or OpenAI or Claude or whatever, Mistral, and you will get always answers. But these answers are not rooted in representative survey data. So you will never know how big a group is, or if it's really relevant for your business or not. And those are the questions that we are answering, of course, already for decades as researchers, as market researchers. That's where we are focused on. And so now we are enabled with AI. And with this, you can optimize, co-create strategy, communication, a very tailored citizen groups, so not abstract personas, no, very tailored groups that are relevant for your business challenges and growth, and taking into account those cultural differences with immediate practical applications. So in a nutshell, these are the countries that we cover. It's a GDPR-proof platform, of course. We are a European, a Dutch company, so it's secure. It doesn't go these results to US-based companies, so it's fenced. And so we need from our clients, and that's sometimes a struggle, the question to be answered. So, okay, who is your audience? And what is your mission? And where do you see potential for growth? And is that actual potential for growth? Which market should you enter next? Those are all kinds of questions that many entrepreneurs, being impact entrepreneurs or not, are struggling with. Where to invest in, which kind of media channels, which kind of social campaigns. So in this platform, you always need an objective, an audience calibration. I will give some examples in a bit, but based on the countries, the values, demographics, and we can also start from the values and then go to the countries, which might, I think, in the impact world be a better strategy than looking at countries, because you want to tap into a specific psychology or mindset instead of looking at national borders. So this is a different lens, or you want to secure the investment that you have made already in a specific country, but fine-tune it in your communications or your brand development. Then we integrate these audience definitions into the platform. Then we have co-creation sessions, conversations with the clients, where we directly test those positioning claims or concepts or ideas. And then, of course, there's output to be delivered. I want to give some examples before I go to the tool. So for one of our clients, Amnesty International, and there are cases on our website, we are assisting them already for 5 years. And together with them, we have developed a methodology for getting moderate middle groups on this control freedom dimension on board with for progressive or human rights causes. Human rights causes is actually not progressive, it's just human. But that, requires a specific storytelling to get to moderate groups. And sometimes very activist storytelling pushes people away unintendedly, and you don't want to be or inclusive. And it's very effective. So we have done A/B tests. There are interesting cases there. For countering disinfo, you can also use it because we understand how the authoritarian playbook works, how the troll farms get to people and try to delude people who are, well, vulnerable for this. For a US-based philanthropy, Lumina, we looked at needs, so not in education and not in employment. Young people in the US, more and more young males drop out. And we evaluated outreach communications material. In those communications, there are archetypes visible that might push young men away if you stress those too much. That is interesting. So in each communications, and we could do it with your website or with your campaign or whatever, and I will show you later on how it works in practice, there are archetypes that you represent and narratives for storytelling. And if you get those above the table, then it becomes a deliberate choice. Who do I want to be more inclusive of? Is this a silent group? And how can I reshape my narrative and storytelling if you want it? Because we, of course, would never plead for diluting your mission. You should say true to who you are, but then be aware of who you attract or detract and make a conscious decision of trying to change that or not. So who is worried about climate change, mobilization? We help Friends of the Earth, Milieudefensie. So it depends on your audience. That's the message. You need to understand and know who you are for. So here I asked the tool the questions: how can this Glocalities platform be used practically for optimizing and de-risking the portfolio of investors from, well, generous minds? And then I say, well, focus on Europe and look at the archetypes, and the values and the lifestyles and demographics from the data to substantiate your answer. Should I make it bigger? I can do it. Can you read it? Yeah, also at the back. So it can be used as a market validation portfolio risk reduction tool. Instead of evaluating ventures only on financial forecasts, you can also test whether a startup aligns with the dominant values, lifestyles, and psychological archetypes of European consumers who are most likely to adopt a solution. So it can be a framework for portfolio allocation and reducing market risk. And as I said, now it runs on the segments, but we could do it on any of your audiences that you work on. So for creatives, this group is very culture driven, change oriented, and scores high, of course, on creator archetype, but also on the explorer archetype, which has to do with openness to new experiences, curiosity. Whereas the achievers, and that's the second group that is relevant for impact, the theory of change, investing, the whole ecosystem, it is about, well, you need problem solving, you need action orientation, you need ambition. And they score higher on the hero archetype. So the question is that enough present in your reach out, or do you use moral arguments for a lot? That it can be a combination. And creatives adopt because something is meaningful or culturally progressive, but achievers, and this is how you connect with the moderate, the middle rich group, and not the self-oriented rich, but this middle group, is if it's effective and solves problems. And then we have the sizes of those segments in countries, and we see that in the Netherlands, Sweden, Germany, those are quite strong. So yeah, ventures aligned with those archetypes will face lower market adoption risk. We can also validate it through the values cards that we have in the study, because this tool is trained to triangulate, not only rely on one data point, but only come up with conclusions if multiple data points point in the same direction. Then we see that freedom, equality, innovation fits with them. So performance and scale, that is relevant for the achievers. And then you get to climate tech, health optimization, etc. So this is through the values lens. But we can also look at it through the lifestyle data. And you see organic food, ecotourism, ecological lifestyle within these groups is much more adopted in comparison with the total of the population. And here you have the numbers. Sometimes it's even double. Yeah, and then we can go on and test the market size, or look at trust ecosystems. Now I'm going to scroll down towards the conclusion because I want to show some other cases as well. But as an investor, you can secure your portfolio companies on various dimensions. And we could develop a model for this also, for specific types of sustainable startups. Based on the archetypal resonance, we can test it also with the communications to say, well, are these archetypes really present, or can you rewrite some of the messaging, storytelling, copy to and test it in a campaign and then revise it if it doesn't work? It can be very flexible. So instead of asking, is this tech promising, you can ask, does this solution fit the values, archetypes, and lifestyles of consumer groups in the markets we want to scale? So you can choose the best geographic markets for scaling. And as I said, not only based on those segments, I would not recommend it. I'm just showing it for demonstration purposes, because there will be a lot of other things that you would want to calibrate the audiences on. But then we can have this layer. And then it can, well, create a scoring model, etc. Another example that I wanted to show is about Investdoor. And we prepared this.
Sorry. That was my idea.
That was the idea of Sabine. And so I've been pre-prompting, and welcome Roel, that's my other colleague, who is present, who is working a lot on those kind of projects. For Investdoor, so the real opportunity is not only identifying who might invest, but it's about matching different types of investment opportunities with the value motivations of investor segments. It's a crowdfunding platform. And so I don't have any background knowledge about Investdoor, so please don't feel offended, but I wanted to test this case. And of course, we always need a proper conversation at the start of a project. Also, what is your goal, etc. But I think still here we have some findings. So matching different types of investment opportunities with the value motivations of different investor segments. In crowdfunding, it's very important because you want to reach large groups. Then we have tested it for various types of startups. So renewable energy startups fits with creatives and achievers as a second audience. And here it substantiates it why. Creatives are high on climate change concern, trust in science. Achievers are also high on sustainable brand preference, higher income. So creatives combine environmental conviction with intellectual curiosity and systems thinking, while the achievers again look at efficiency and scalable solutions. So then you can frame it in a different way in your communications on the crowdfunding platform or in your campaigns. Climate tech can be the next growth market for achievers, can be systemic transformation for creatives. And you can find these people online, as I said, through their lifestyle interests. That is a way. And then we can look at, this is for the UK, The Guardian, for example. Then sustainable consumer brands, that's a different combination. Here you have socializers and creatives, and it's more related to lifestyle expression. Because the socializer, they are more into pleasure, caring, they are more concerned about animal cruelty. WWF fits very well with the panda bear in their communications, and you'll feel it, but now we substantiate it with the data. And this is a very important and large consumer group. Yeah, I'm going through it fast. I will go to tech or AI startups. There you have achievers and a new segment appearing, the challengers, as a secondary group. They are into action games, tech curious. I also know that, well, they were the early adopters of crypto, and well, this is so with this tool we can together co-create those strategies and learn on the fly. Yeah, then we have social impact or community ventures. Creatives are the core group for that. Human rights concerns, NGO trust, voting for causes. So they are the most activist investor segment. And socializers engage with impact through community belonging and empathy. So for creatives, it's systemic social innovation more as an opportunity. And for socializers, it's community-powered change locally also more. And we know that the creatives are very globally oriented, whereas the socializers are more nationally oriented. The repair center, and the question was, how can you accelerate the circular repair economy? And also, what are the consequences for the narrative and where scaling opportunities exist? And what I did here, and I'm going to scroll down later, is I took their website, which is only a snippet, but it already detected that there were archetypes present very strongly, but other archetypes underutilized for scaling. So the creatives and the achievers, again, fit with social impact and environmental responsibility. And as you've seen before, cultural change, sustainability fits with creatives. Interestingly enough, here for conservatives, stability and durability and sobriety, those kind of values fit also. Solution-oriented systemic innovation for the achievers. So the cultural drivers of circular fashion, and then it gets back to the data. For creatives, it's the equality value, it's diversity, openness, eco-consciousness. Those people are the cultural legitimizers, sorry. And the achievers are the systemic implementers more. So you can think of broadening this coalition and also talents, and also within your organization. Of course, this has consequences for your employees also, and your team building. At Mode of Action, there's a team focused on that. Employee workforce development. Here we see the conservatives also. Nostalgia, organized life, repairing possessions rather than replacing them. A very important, potential route to take. You can use this for creating the multi-stakeholder ecosystem, also with fashion brands, institutions. Again, linking with those consumption habits. And with achievers, you can look at values that fit with specific brands. So we have also a lot of brands in this database. And I know United Repair Center is working with Patagonia. Patagonia has a very clear brand story that we can also prompt with based on the data in 29 countries or more, and then find the right fit. So what I now want to do is to go to the message testing, because that's a very practical application. I'm going to scroll down. So we see from the data that the caregiver, the hero, and the creator archetypes, those three fit with those audiences. And then I looked at the website. So now I'm going to scroll down to that prompting. So can you test their current communications on the website against this strategy that I just formulated based on the data, and where do you see room for optimization? Well, and then it does it based on the main pages, those pages. And of course, we could do it more in depth in the dedicated endeavor. But we see here that it aligns with the caregiver and hero narratives, and it underutilizes the creator and explorer motivations that can drive those creative consumers. And it does not fully leverage achievers' appetite for scalable innovation and measurable impact, which is a lot of potential. So what works well? The social employment narrative that is strongly present on the website resonates with the caregiver values, for sure. And here we have the supporting data that fits with those segments. And why the refugee employment message is powerful for legitimacy. Where you can optimize, and it's of course always a conversation, but if you communicate repair as a moral duty and not as a new fashion system innovation, you miss out on potential. And the creatives scorely over-index on exploring new things, multifaceted identity. So frame repair as reinventing fashion, not just fixing it, is a direction you can consider. So from repairing clothes reduces waste to we are redesigning how fashion lives. Yeah, and then we look at the achievers, and they respond to performance and scaling narratives. And there you can frame repair as industrial innovation. Yeah, I will go to the conclusion now, and then we have time for more discussion. But the key strategic insight is it currently, with this website, and I'm not judging any campaigns, and it's just a first look, but it activates the caregiver archetype, and that builds trust and legitimacy, and is related to the communities. And I know this is built on those communities locally. But if you want to scale circular fashion, the creators and achievers are important, and you can do that via exploration, innovation. So position repair as the next evolution of fashion systems, and yeah, you will get more people in the ecosystem above. And then it proposes to write homepage messaging, but I didn't do that. So yeah, I think a lot is possible.
What is it built on?
Yes, so we make which LLM? Yeah, so first I want to say that this is in the Microsoft Azure environment, which is hosted here. And then we use the OpenAI LLM that doesn't go there. That's hosted here. But what we are working, because so far it has way better results than other LLMs if we train it with our data, etc. But we want to work towards being able to integrate more LLMs. And preferably if Europe is, Mistral is going ahead in the game, we want to migrate towards that. But it would be a pity not to use the best in the game now for scaling impact. So yeah, this is how we work.